Back at you with another episode, broadcasting on behalf of 13 Signs Astrology YouTube. What I want to do on this episode is just kind of like you could say it's a part two to the last episode I did, but it's going to be basically about the Kundalini serpent power. Now we are going into a full moon in a fucus in a few hours. In a fucus, according to medical astrology, one of the things that it represents is the Kundalini serpent energy. It represents the Kundalini. So like say for instance, you have different signs like Pisces, they represent the feet. Each sign represents a part of the body. Aries represents the head. Gemini represents the lungs and the arms and the hands and what may have you. Well, a fucus represents the Kundalini. It represents a part of the body that's not physical. This is because the fucus is depicted as the serpent. So this is a perfect time to do and partake in these type of sexual rituals that I was talking about on the last episode. And it's a really good time. However, it can be very dangerous. See, what you got to remember is that the hierarchy, man, they fear the Kundalini, the fucking Kundalini energy. It's scary as hell to them. Scary because of the fact that the Kundalini energy is a war tool. And this is why they took out sexual ritual from not only just in religion, but they even took it out of certain mystery systems. In certain mystery systems, you don't hear nothing about sexual ritual. You hear a lot about sexual ritual in China and India and places like that, mainly in India, and people that, are into the Kama Sutra and things of that nature. But for the most part, sexual ritual is suppressed. Sex in general is suppressed and it's secret. And there's nothing wrong with that because you are engaging, when you have sex, you are engaging in something that's very powerful. Very powerful when a man and woman have sex. It's very powerful because of the fact that this is warfare going on between the man and a woman on one level. Yeah, that's right. When you have sex, it's warfare going on between a man and a woman on one level. However, when the energies become one during a sexual experience, you can use that sexual energy and turn that into a weapon. You see, in the hierarchy and the powers that be, they fear that. So this is why in most religions, which is really religion is a system of enslavement and imprisonment and incarceration, if you ask me. But in most religions, they teach that, you should be celibate, and all of this type of stuff because they really want your sexual power to be suppressed. You're not as powerful if you don't have control over Kundalini energy. And Kundalini energy is not limited to just sex. I will say that because the goal is to get your Kundalini to rise, to get your snake to do a 360 and rise and come out of the crown chakra. The snake, when it lies dormant, when your Kundalini hasn't risen, you have to remember that the snake's head is sitting at the base, or what's called the root chakra in your spinal column, the head of the snake. When I say the head of the snake, this is the actual energy that I'm talking about, the Kundalini energy. It has a head and it has a tail. So the head of the Kundalini energy is equal to a snake. And that head of that snake is sitting at the root chakra. And when it's dormant, which means when it's dormant, it means that your Kundalini has not risen. Some of you may be 50, 60 years old, Kundalini's never risen, men and women. And sex is a good way to get it to rise. However, there's other ways. So when the Kundalini begins to rise, the snake does a 360 and it begins to rise up the spinal column, and it comes out of the crown chakra. It comes out of your forehead, and this is when you begin to achieve what's called enlightenment. You begin to become enlightened. And when you become enlightened, this is when you learn or you break free from the construct of the matrix. It's not just about having wisdom. See, some people equate enlightenment to having wisdom. Enlightenment is deeper than having wisdom. When you become enlightened, you break free from the illusion that the matrix has to offer, and you learn about what's real. You see, the matrix is an illusion. What I mean by that is that you think that there are certain rules and certain boundaries when there's really not. It's just that you are in the dream state. You are in what's called the dream. And this is what they break when you get initiated into certain vampirical orders, as I was talking about a couple of episodes back. One of the things they teach you is how to break free from the dream, and how to see reality for what it is. Some people call this having an overstanding. So when you become enlightened, this is linked into your Kundalini rising. So you begin to break free from certain spells of poverty, spells of sexual lack, spells of imprisonment and enslavement, incarceration due to religion. What do I mean by that? See, some people out there are poverty-stricken. You have people out there that feel as though it's their lot in life to have a certain amount of money or to live a certain way or to be poor, and they're conditioned. Poverty and being poor, they have what's called a poor mentality. They're conditioned to be that way based on their environment. This is a person that is not enlightened, because an enlightened person will know you have the free will choice to experience wealth and abundance or poverty. And it's not about how much money you have. Wealth and abundance is basically learning how to use your resources and everything that you have around you effectively. Learning how to work with everything in your environment, whether you live in an apartment or whatever, wherever you live in your environment. I don't care if you live in the bushes, you should be using everything around you effectively. This is abundance. And a lot of people have a poverty mentality, and poverty mentality comes from the lack of knowledge, in this case, and not knowing how to use the resources you have around you to work for you. Some people are sexually what's called enslaved. You have sex out of chore. If you are having sex, you don't have sex for the fulfillment in it. Some people, women out there hate sex because you may have had children with a no good man, and you was having sex and you're feeling all good, and then you got pregnant, and the man that you got pregnant by left. So you have women that hate sex. There's men that only use sex to basically bust a nut, and that's it. You are enslaved to that nut. You're a slave to that nut, so you have to become sexually liberated. So when your Kundalini begins to rise, you begin to see the prison that you're in. You begin to see what's real and what's an illusion. And the prison that you're in is an illusion based upon your thinking and your mind. If you feel trapped, if you feel stuck, this is an illusion. This means that you are not enlightened. An enlightened person never feels stuck. They never feel trapped. They're always free. And lastly, some people are trapped by programmings coming from religion. And not just religion, education. This is all locked in together. Religion, education, television. You're programmed to believe what your environment is teaching you. You don't believe in your own inspiration. You don't believe that you can teach yourself things. You don't believe that you can go into meditation and learn profound knowledge. You are a slave to doctrine, essentially, in books. And if it's not in a book, or if it's not on a YouTube video, or if your professor didn't say it, or this or that, you don't believe it. If it comes from within you, you doubt it. Anything that comes from you, you feel like you're crazy. You doubt yourself. See, this is how you know that your Kundalini is not risen. When your Kundalini rises, you become empowered. And this is why the hierarchy you break free, essentially. You're no longer under their control when the Kundalini rises, and you become a weapon to them. And you become a threat. You may even become a terrorist, because the Kundalini is powerful. When the Kundalini rises, you'll go outside and people will feel you. The animals will start chirping and making noise. Everything wakes up. You could be quiet, tiptoeing outside, but everything seems to wake up when you step on the scene. People look at you, and they stare at you. Animals even stare at you like you are some type of a foreign being. This is because your Kundalini has risen. You're becoming enlightened. And people notice you. You are a light. You're like a star. You're illuminating. So in the hierarchy, they fear that. They fear that more than anything else. You can read all the books. You can expose all of the different secret societies. You can, expose and debunk all the secret information about Jade Hill and all this other stuff. But let your Kundalini rise. And they see that. See, the reptilians can see the Kundalini. You look different to them in their vision, their eyesight. And I'm not just reptilians. I'm not just speaking on reptilians, but any being that may be against your awakening. Insectilian, care who they are. They see that. And they know that your Kundalini has woken up. You have risen. So, very important to understand that it's dangerous when you partake in different sexual rituals, because you become a magnet, but you must remain in control. This is warfare. You must remember that there are a lot of people that is against their best interest, and they have an invested interest in you remaining a clone, or not just a clone, but remaining a slave. See, when you're Kundalini, you become enlightened, you are breaking free from slavery. You are a free being, a free spiritual being. So always remember, they don't want you to wake up. They don't want you to become enlightened. This is what they fear the most. More so than anything. You want to do something to change the world, wake your Kundalini up. Start meditating. Start partaking in sexual rituals. Some people may even use psychedelics to wake your Kundalini up. What I would say about the psychedelics is that, like you may have a Kundalini moment or a Kundalini experience on psychedelics, but is it prolonged and sustained? See, the thing about different drugs like marijuana and stuff like that is you'll have a Kundalini moment. However, it will go away when you get sober again. You're not enlightened anymore. You become a slave now to the marijuana plant. So marijuana may be good in one instance to help you have a Kundalini experience, but can you sustain it without the marijuana? Do you still feel high without the marijuana? Can you quit doing the marijuana at will? Can you leave it alone at will? Are you controlled in any way by the marijuana or by the mushroom or whatever you're using to have a Kundalini experience? But they still fear those things. That's why they ban marijuana. So at the same time, they still fear a person that's smoking weed all the time versus a person that's not, because they know that person that's smoking weed, they guarantee you thinking out the box. So why do you think you got to have a piss test to get a job? They still fear that just as much. You got to get a piss test to do certain stuff in society. Marijuana is illegal in more countries than not, and it's something that grows naturally. You can pick it up off the ground, eat it, and become euphoric or become high. You don't always have to smoke weed to get high. But why did they ban it? It's really just a food. They banned it because there's a conspiracy. They do not want you to have a Kundalini experience, a Kundalini moment. They don't want that your rays to come out of your head, that snake to come out of your head. Women have Kundalini experiences more so than men when they have, not just when they have orgasms, but in general. This is why women are sometimes, not all women, but some women are wiser than men, especially conscious women. They're a little bit wiser than men because they've had Kundalini moments without using drugs more often. Women have Kundalini moments during pregnancy. So I hear from reading in different books. Women have Kundalini moments, like I said, during sex. Women have Kundalini moments when they're with their children, embracing their children, because the love that a woman feels for her children it frees her from any control. She is all about making sure that her child has a good life. So this is why when you talk about, you call yourself a Naga and a serpent, a Naga serpent and all this, the Naga serpents, as this particular female pointed out to me, these were women. You're saying you're a Naga priest, but they were women. That's right, the Naga priests the original Naga priests were females. Priestesses were females. See, people don't know that they originated that. And it's not about sexism or gangbanging or anything like that, but to understand the Kundalini is feminine, more so than masculine. However, you can be a man to experience it, you can be a woman to experience it. If you're a child, I suggest, and most children won't really have a Kundalini moment until they are of age of 13, 14 years old, because it can make you very sexual. Children that have Kundalini moments prior to the age of 13 or 14 years old, these are advanced souls. So like a lot of your rainbow children, indigo children, indigo children are a little bit older now, but mainly your rainbow children, they're having Kundalini experiences at the ages of 6 and 7 and things like that, and they can kind of come off a little bit more sexual. You see, because they're having Kundalini experiences. So you as a parent, you have to learn about spirituality, and your goal is to educate them on their sexuality and their spirituality so that they can understand that they are having a Kundalini awakening. They're getting all this attention from people because their Kundalini has risen and they're enlightened. And it's a light around them and people see it. And they fear it. So that's the hierarchy, man. They fearing that shit right about now. You got to be more careful with having a Kundalini experience than you do, and being labeled a terrorist than you do, going out here and exposing the whole damn U.S. government and everything else about it. They ain't gonna really, you're not gonna be as much of a threat as a person that has their Kundalini risen, because that's the beginning phases of really becoming a true mystic, a true magician. People, they always tell me all the time they want to disappear, they want to levitate. They want to do this. They want to do that. You're not going to do any of that if you don't have, if you haven't become enlightened first. If your Kundalini hasn't risen. When your Kundalini rises, you have no fear. So many of you have Kundalini moments. However, after this ritual that I talked about in the last video, and just in general, when you start doing your spiritual work, I want you guys to have Kundalini experiences consistently, on a consistent basis. You know, I want it to be consistent, not just when you smoke that blunt. Like, I want you to wake up and have a Kundalini moment. I want you to have Kundalini moments in your dreams. You know you're having Kundalini moments in your dreams when you can remember them. You have control in your dreams. You are lucid. You can do things in your dreams to shift your waking reality. This is what the powers that you get from having a Kundalini that's ignited. So it's that time. You know, we are in the full moon of the Fucus. So take advantage of this opportunity to become a master super being, essentially. You're going to become super mystic man or woman in this time. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching. We'll go ahead and shut down. And until my next Hotep, namaste. Peace.